Hi guys, and welcome back. This is the rose project, and basically what we're going to do is teach you how to do a rose that's going to be a part of the final project with the girl and the two roses. So we need to understand how we approach doing roses, things with sharp edges, to make your life a lot easier with overspray. We're going to use what's known as application tape. So all I've done is I've put the sheet of application tape on top of my cutting mat, and what I'm going to do is kind of put the rose in the center of the cutting mat and center of the application tape, because we want to negate any overspray around the rose. So I will then place underneath the sarrel paper. So I'll position that first, dark side down first, and then the rose in the middle. Now you can lock the top of the project down so you can flip it and make sure you've got all your edges, as we've done in previous stuff. So I'm going to lock the top image down just with a bit of tape, just so I can flip it and have a look and move the sarrel out, and it goes back to exactly the same spot. So all we're going to do for this stage is just the first rose. We're not going to worry about the second rose. We can do that when we come to do the larger project. So all I'm going to do is trace around each line of the rose. Let's have a look and see if we've got a completed rose. So I pull the reference out of the way, move the sarrel. You can see I'm missing this part of the petal there. I'm just going to check that. That is a solid red there, so that's fine. Check I've got that. Yeah, got that. There is a bit of a shadow there. I'm going to give myself an indication of a shadow there. Yeah, we're pretty much there, as in the petals that we want. It's just this bottom edge. So we'll just go along there, and there's our completed rose. So now what we'll do, we'll cut around the entire even outside, leaving each petal in at the moment. We're just going to do the outline. Loose there, and loose there. Okay. So we've now got two pieces, and what we can actually do now is position our rose, this piece, exactly where we want it on our board. So we'll just gently peel that up. With a spare cut bit there. We'll peel this up. We'll stick this to our board, and then we will place the outer masking over and make sure it matches every one of these edges. Here's our die bond board, all prepped with sealer white. So you get the die bond boards as standard, and then what we do is we scuff the board with red Scotch-Brite. Just so you know how we prepare these boards, we red Scotch-Brite the board, and then tack rag it off. So we go over with a tack rag. It's kind of sticky rag that picks up all the debris off of the surface, and then we sealer white it with sealer white paint. It's like a base paint. And then let that go off, let that flash off or dry, and then we're ready to go for paint. So using the reference photo, we kind of want to position our rose. It doesn't have to be exact, but we want to position our rose on the surface. We might have to go a little bit higher. We'll have this petal kind of coming off, because we don't want to lose the top of her hair really. Well, in fact, yeah, we'll have the rose creeping off. I'd rather get her hair in and have the rose creeping off the edge. So if we kind of line it up like this, and then we kind of know where we've got to be, and we'll just flip that and try and match where we kind of want our rose to be. It doesn't have to be exact, like I say. So we'll just turn that ever so slightly. As long as we're not going up into a jawline, we should be fine. Move it over to the left a little. I'm quite happy with that. So that's our position. Find each corner, which looks like that to me, and we match it up. Now we can take the inner rose out. Okay. Stick that to one side, and now we've got our core rose ready to go. Now what we're going to do is literally block in our shade of red that's in our reference, which we're using Pyrrole Red, which is in your pack, and all we're going to do is light shades until we get the opacity that we need of the reds, and then run your finger round the edge just to make sure your application tape is down really nice and tight. I think that's dry now. We're going to leave that for a couple of minutes, and then we'll start with our shade in black and start bringing in some of the petals. And the application tape we're using is low tack application tape anyway, so it shouldn't pull up the paint, which it's not at the moment, but if we hit a wet spot we might get a little bit of pull up, but fingers crossed we won't. So what I've done is I've just cut out 2 petals. That's it. So I've cut out this one on the right, which is there. Okay, and I've cut out, if I can find it, there she is, this one here. I used the cutting mat to cut it out rather than cutting on the board, because you'll put cuts into the board and we don't really want that. Not at this stage anyway. So there's our rose in position with our petals. So what I'm going to do, because this one slightly overlaps this one and this one overlaps this one, I'm going to remove this one first and do a drop shadow from these 2 petals to this petal here. So I'm going to peel this one off. There is an actual dip there actually, so I will cut that out on the board there. So it may not have cut right the way through because I've done it very lightly. Yeah, it hasn't quite cut through, but no, I'm gonna have to do it on the cutting board. So before I start, there is a little bit of a pull up there. See, we've got a white dot there, but that's probably where I used to pick up the actual rose stencil. So I'm going to pop that in there first. Okay. And I'm going to do the shadow just in that gap. Just build up on this area. And push up. Push up. Push up. It's quite dark in this corner. But as it comes to this rose here, this petal here, because that's going inwards, we don't want to create too much of a line there. It's almost fading out. So here we'll put a little bit of a light shadow under there, and now I can remove this, and as you can see it looks like it's going inwards. Now as we do the rose and we put our shading black in, we can use a mottled effect to give you a bit of texture. You don't have to, you can keep it all very smooth looking. It's what you want out of your rose. So I'm going to use a little bit of texture here. So I'm just spraying through the texture ever so lightly. And I'm creating a bit of texture to the rose. I'm not going heavy, I'm just allowing it to just shade it a little. Okay, so I'm just adding a little bit of texture, not a lot, to the rose. I may save some areas, your safe area, your masking, and then just come up to the line. And almost run the line 50-50, like that. And then I'm just going to curl it over to that corner. So I'm going up along the line and I'm curling it over. Now what I'll do is I'll run on this bottom edge because it's like it's going round the corner. So I'm just going to run, same again. Going to run along that edge. I'm going to do some little curls up. 1, 2. Just from a distance, just curl them over. Like that. And then here I'm going to come in, because we're at the bottom and we can't really see what's going on because we're going off. I'm just running this bottom edge very lightly. Now here we've got a couple of curls, so I'm going to come off of the actual application tape and I'm just going to come in and flick off. In and flick off. It might be worth a little practice on the side. Just go there and flick off. Flick off. I'm not shutting the air off or anything like that, I'm just flicking it off. If you want, you can do a dagger stroke, which is paint on, and as you come up, switch the paint off. Come up, switch the paint off. It's the same principle. Okay, so we'll continue now along our shade line there, because we don't want it looking like it's a line. We want it looking like it's blended, so we're going to run along that line. Okay, that softens it. And there's a little bit, I'm just going to use a bit of paper there just to cross that off, that triangle bit there, rather than keep, you know, cutting bits out. I'm just going to cut that corner off and put a little bit of a shadow in there. Okay, that's practically our first petal done. So we'll let that air dry and dry off. Make sure it's all dry. And then we'll stick our application tape back on into its position. There. And that protects what we've already done. So now with the one that we prepared earlier, we can just come in and take this one off, which overlaps this. On this edge kind of overlaps this one. But again, on this bottom edge here, it's kind of rounded. So we'll come in with our texture just a light little bit of texture. I call this the fluffy. We're just gonna put a little bit of texture in our petals. Doesn't have to be huge amounts, as I said. Enough just to put a bit of detail in. If you go a little bit heavy, don't worry about it. I know it's the first time you're kind of using, you know, textures and stuff, so there you go. That's got a bit of texture in it. Now what we'll do is we'll run this edge here. Because that's creeping over, and I'm just going to punch out like we did here and up here on our rose. I'm just going to punch in to create those little creases on the rose here, and then I'll just continue them, just punch in like that. There's a little bit of a drop shadow in this corner if you look at the reference. So you can mist over, because that's black already, you can just mist over that corner and not worry about how dark this is going to get. And we can just give it a light mist. So I'm going over with a very fine mist just to push that intensity of the red back. That can be a fold there. So just, that's it. Okay, now we can do the one above. And I'm just going to dust up that line. So. Okay, I just stuck my thumb there to block that little line from getting spray in it, and then I'm going to go up this edge and soften it as I go up. So harsh to begin with, quite dark, and then soften it as it goes up. A little bit of a drop shadow in there, and there. Okay, and then drop shadow in here. Okay, one last little sliver to come out. There we go. We can make that a little bit darker underneath if we want. Just round it off. And that is our rose. It's not difficult, it doesn't take long to do. We can neaten up that. I can see a little bit of an edge there, so we can go around with shields if you want, and just like we've got a little bit of a dip in there, so I'll just neaten up that edge just by hitting a bit of black and just straightening it up there like that.